This is Autohaus Hamilton TV. I'm James, and in this video, Mythbusting. So, the myth. An injured party achieves revenge by dumping sugar into an enemy's fuel tank. Or in Tales of Daring Do, the intrepid hero disables the bad guy's car by adding sugar to the fuel. The sugar gums up the bad guy's car's engine, and the hero, or this being the 21st century, the heroine, escapes. Leaving aside the minor difficulty of gaining access to the car's petrol tank, or even the difficulty of finding a handy bag of sugar when thuggish assassins are breathing down your neck, there are bigger problems. Firstly, there's the presence of a fuel filter. The fuel filter will prevent any impurities from reaching the engine, and in the case of a fuel system, even the purest of sugar constitutes an impurity. So that's the first problem with the myth. There's an even bigger one though, and that is things that dissolve in water, such as sugar, generally don't dissolve in oils. And similarly, things that dissolve in oil don't dissolve in water. The reason is that water is polar. If you thought that this is why so much of the Earth's water accumulates around the North Pole and the South Pole, you'd be completely wrong. What it is that a water molecule consists of two hydrogen and a single oxygen atom joined together, but the electrons, which give a negative charge, gather around the oxygen atom, and there are less electrons around the hydrogen atom. The reason for this is science. This gives water molecules polarity. One side of the water molecule has a slight negative charge, and the other side has a slight positive charge. Now, if you look really closely at a glass of water, you can't see any of this, but it is still true. So, water, being polar, dissolves things which are also polar, but does not dissolve things which are not polar. Oils, on the other hand, are not polar, which means that things that are not polar can be dissolved in oil. Alcohol, in case you hadn't already discovered this for yourself, is a bit of an oddball. It has one end which is polar and another end which is non-polar. So alcohol is at the same time both oil-like and water-like. This is why your scotch mixes so well with water, and also why you can use rubbing alcohol to remove an oil stain from a piece of fabric. The sciencey word for this is amphipathic, which basically just means everything that I've just said. An amphipathic molecule has one end which is polar and another end which is not polar. And this ability to dissolve almost anything is the reason why, after a particular rough day, alcohol often seems like the solution. So, on to experiment time. Despite the presence of petrol here, if all goes to plan, there won't be any explosions or fireballs as part of this video. So the question is, what happens when we add sugar to petrol? Well, let's find out. So we have sugar here. In the jar we have petrol. And add a bit of sugar to the petrol. Give it a stir. And absolutely nothing happens. The petrol completely fails to dissolve the sugar, which you can see at the bottom of the glass there. So the question then is, what does dissolve in petrol? Well, anything that is non-polar. So here are mothballs. This is also the answer to the question of why do moths fly with their legs apart? Look at the size of mothballs. There's your answer. So mothballs, or naphthalene to give it its proper name, does dissolve in petrol. And let's give that a test. So you drop the mothball into the petrol. Give it a bit of a stir. And that mothball is shrinking. After several minutes of stirring, we can see that the mothball that was in the petrol is now quite a bit smaller than than the other mothball, so this moth would now fly around in circles. Mothballs do indeed dissolve in petrol, and sure enough, as with pretty much anything that can dissolve in petrol, mothballs have been peddled as an octane booster or a performance enhancer for petrol. There was even an Australian company called Firepower who peddled a mix of, among other things, mothballs, which was supposed to improve your car's performance, clean the engine, and do all the wonderful things that aftermarket fuel additives are supposed to do, but invariably never do. So maybe that's another myth. Now, to get back to where we started, if you are an aggrieved party with a score to settle, you now know that adding sugar to the petrol tank of your nemesis will do nothing at all. But chances are your nemesis hasn't watched this video, so your nemesis won't know that. So you don't need to add petrol to anybody's fuel tank. However, a small amount of sugar carelessly sprinkled near the petrol tank of your arch enemy may make them think that there was petrol in their fuel tank. Until next time, thank you for watching. Hi, this is that was dreadful.